esteemed guests, welcome to the 74th National Book Awards ceremony. Tonight's host is LeVar Burton, renowned actor, director, producer, and lifelong literacy advocate, whose decades-long body of work includes Roots, Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Reading Rainbow. He is the honored recipient of 7 NAACP awards, a Peabody Award, a Grammy Award, and 15 Emmy Awards. Please welcome LeVar Burton.
My people! Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and welcome everyone to the 74th National Book Awards. Yes. I had the tremendous honor of serving as Master of Ceremonies for the 70th National Book Awards in 2019, and it genuinely means the world to me to join you all again on this stage to celebrate the importance of literature to our shared culture. Before we get going, are there any moms for liberty in the house? Moms for liberty? No? Good. Then hands will not need to be thrown tonight. We call the National Book Awards ceremony the biggest night for books, and I've been saying for the last 3 weeks that this is, on the planet, the best room to be in on this night. There are hundreds of you beautiful people here in the room tonight, and thousands more tuning in online worldwide. Shout out to my sister Letitia, who actually taught me how to read. Thank you, Letitia. She's watching the live feed. It is a very special thing to be in community with those who believe, like I do, in the power of reading. It was 4 years ago on this stage that I spoke a bit about my mother, Irma Jean Christian, an English teacher. And it was my mother who taught me at a very young age that if you can read in at least one language, you are, by her definition, free. And the idea And that idea of freedom feels especially fraught in this global political moment. There are wars and rumors of wars and the machinery of war at work. On the home front, we are fighting for control of truth and how we interpret truth in this country. Books are being banned, words are being silenced, and writers and others who champion books are under attack. And there is a reason, I believe, why books are under attack. It's because they are so powerful. Stories are the tool that enable us to better understand ourselves and, yes, our history, to live over the course of a few pages in the experiences of another, and to create a world where we can all be free. Thank you to the 2023 National Book Award finalists who help us believe in a brighter future. And yes, and who wield their words so masterfully with so much compassion and insight. So tonight, we are celebrating books set from literally around the corner to around the globe, from the past through the present and into the future. You see what I did there? The diversity of these works illuminate our shared humanity, our world as it is and as it could be. And now, it is my honor to welcome to the stage this evening's special guest, Miss Oprah Winfrey.
What a great joy for me to be here, to share the same space with all of you, my heroes and heroines. Because books have rescued me, books have delivered me, books have exalted me and helped me discover more of myself. I'm having flashback memories right now of getting my first library card at the Nashville Hadley Park Library. And being in awe that I got to take 5 books home, and being so overwhelmed by the power of authors and their words. I couldn't understand how you all did that. And now for me to be able to stand in the same room with all of you who do that is such a privilege and great joy for me. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth Dickey, and the whole team at the National Book Foundation. Thank you, LeVar Burton, who loves books as much as I. And again, to the finalists, to the long listers, to every single writer who has graced us this year with your words and with your wisdom. To all of you who faithfully labor at putting pen to paper, fingers to computer, creating inspired connections to our imaginations. Thank you for all the momentous relationships that you have built with us through the magic and the majesty and the simplicity of your words. So, the book club, Oprah's book club. I know there are a lot of book clubs now, but we're the OGs, okay? Hello. Back in 1996, the book club started on The Oprah Show because my producer, Alice McGee at the time, and I had our own private book exchanges going for years. And she suggested one day, she said, since you love books and authors so much, why don't you share your excitement with our viewers? And I said, Alice, you cannot do a show with authors who write fiction, because the audience is not gonna know what we're talking about. And she said, they will if you give them time to read the book. And 27 years and 103 book club picks later, I am grateful for the sense of safety, the sense of purpose and growth that this community has given me. Every day I get invigorated by opening a book, often by reading that first sentence. First, I got myself born, says Damian Fields on page 1 of Demon Copperhead. Thank you, Barbara Kingsolver. You know, until that moment, I never thought of it quite that way before, that we get to own our own entrance into the world. Or how about this? On a hot night in apartment C4, Blandine Watkins exits her body. She's only 18 years old, but she spent most of her life wishing for this to happen. That was Tess Gunty for The Rabbit Hutch. I want to especially thank tonight the readers Here and at home, the people who poured through all 735 pages of an epic novel set in India with me. Hello, Abraham Verghese and the Covenant of Water. Or wept over a memoir or opened their minds to the ideas of a nonfiction book about our culture and our world. Not to mention all those young people out there who found their voices in books written for them or by them. Hello, Amanda Gorman. I'm talking about the readers who picked up The Color Purple 40 years ago and found the kind of truth that I found in those pages. Dear God, I am 14 years old. I've always been a good girl. Maybe you can give me a sign letting me know what is happening to me. Truth that translated into a movie, into a Broadway musical, and now the movie version of that musical opening this Christmas at a theater near you. That is the power of a story well told. Thank you, Alice Walker. It's been 24 years since my last time on this stage in front of this podium, and since then, as LeVar stated, between 2021 and 2022, the American Library Association saw a 70% increase in requests to ban books from public schools and libraries. And it's looking like this year is going to be even worse. Early data shows us that number has already risen by 20%. So over 75% of those books banned were specifically written for younger readers. 41% had LGBTQ themes or characters, and 40% had a main or secondary character of color. So who exactly is trying to keep these books off the shelves? It's not the majority of parents. This September, 67% of parents surveyed by the Every Library Institute agreed that banning books is a waste of time. Meanwhile, there's been dozens and dozens of bomb threats against libraries. Tracy Hall, the former director of the American Library Association, hello, Tracy, says that at least 10 of last year's threats were verified, and almost every case had been linked to somebody who was disgruntled about the right to read. Amanda Jones, a Louisiana school librarian, in July of 2022, went to a public library board meeting to speak out against an attempt to ban books. And that day, she showed up at that meeting as just a concerned citizen. She didn't say where she worked. She just spoke about the importance of having diverse books. Immediately, she had her work address leaked. People began posting nonstop, making accusations about her abusing the young readers at her library. Children she dedicated 23 years of her life to educating. She started getting death threats, all for standing up for our right to read. And 2 years later, she's still nervous to go out in her community. She has her groceries delivered, she says, but she's not stopped fighting against book bans or stopped advocating for access to diverse stories. The numbers back her up. This year, the nonprofit First Book found that just 6 months after diverse books were added to classroom libraries, classroom reading time increased by 4 hours per week. I was 15 years old when I read my first diverse book, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And the whole world fell away from me. It was the first book at 15 I ever read with a Black protagonist. That book gave a voice to my silences, my secrets. It gave words to my pain and my confusion of being raped at 9 years old. Until Caged Bird, I didn't know that there was a language, there were words for what had happened to me, or that any other human being on earth had experienced it. That's the power of books. And yet, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sing has been amongst the top 100 most banned or challenged books for each of the last 3 decades. It was the 3rd most banned book from 1990 to 1999, and then in 2020 to 2009, and then the 88th from 2010 to 2019, because there's so many other books ahead of it being banned. It's currently banned in libraries in Pennsylvania. And despite that, Tonight, at my table, I have the honor of sitting beside two-time National Book Award winner and author of my most recent book club selection, Let Us Descend, Jesmyn Ward. In 2022, Jesmyn's first novel, Salvage the Bones, was challenged in Guilford County, North Carolina. And thanks to the efforts of teachers and parents and students and citizens, just ordinary folks, came together, stood together. The book remained in the high school curriculum because the community said it should and would. Make no mistake, to ban books is to snuff out the flame of truth, of what it means to be alive, what it means to be aware, what it means to be engaged in the world. To ban books is to cut us off from one another, to shroud us in a solitary darkness, a soulless echo chamber. To ban books is to strangle off what sustains us and makes us better people. Connection and compassion, empathy, understanding. And my hope is that kids will come to reading for the same reason that all of us in this room have come to reading, to see themselves in the characters they meet, to feel recognized, to feel understood. And when someone feels understood, they can understand. They can pick up a book about people who they have nothing in common with and cry for them and root for them and celebrate with them. That's how reading spills into our everyday lives, how it opens us to the world, the whole world, not just our cozy corner of it. So let us vow to keep our books right where they belong, in reach of everyone to choose for themselves what to read, because that, dear friends, is called freedom. And as you know, I'm a great believer in Toni Morrison, who once said that the function of freedom is to free somebody else. So God bless you all here tonight for continuing to liberate us one page at a time. Thank you so much.
Oprah Winfrey, y'all. Oprah Winfrey. Oprah, I'm now going to say one or two of the things that I was going to say before you jumped up and took the stage. There is no one, no soul on this planet who has done more to advance the cause of the written word than you. I shared with Oprah earlier this evening, we were taking a picture backstage, and I whispered to her, you know, for two people who are descendants of the enslaved, to become symbols for literacy, literature, and the written word, Oprah, you are the patron saint of books and literature. Your presence here tonight has been a blessing, a benediction for us all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I'm going to compose myself, and we will continue with this evening's celebrations with recognizing National Book Foundation's two incredible lifetime achievement honorees, Paul Yamazaki and Rita Dove. So first is the 2023 Literarian Award for Outstanding Service to the American literary community, which is given to recognize the honoree's remarkable dedication to expanding the audience for books and for reading. Past recipients include Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Dr. Maya Angelou, and most recently Tracy D. Hall, the former executive director of the American Library Association. And tonight's recipient is a lifelong bookseller who has paved a path forward for readers locally and globally. And here to present the award to Paul Yamazaki is 2011 Literarian recipient himself, Mitchell Kaplan. Native of Miami Beach, Florida, Mitchell is the owner of the storied Books and Books, the venerated establishment in Miami, and the co-founder of the Miami Book Fair. Y'all, it gives me good pleasure to welcome to the stage Mr. Mitchell Kaplan.
Well, wow. I want to thank Oprah and LeVar for those remarkable opening comments. And I'm also here to thank somebody who's a friend to all of us in this room, and is doing all of the kind of work that we heard LeVar and Oprah talk about. And I'm going to start with a little story, because we're among storytellers, right? So I was 18 years old once, believe it or not. It was 1974. I was an English major then, at that point, at the University of Colorado. And they ended up in Boulder from Miami Beach after reading a book by Jack Kerouac, The Dharma Bums. I had never before seen mountains or snow, but somehow I figured, as only an 18-year-old can figure, that my destiny was to hang out on a mountaintop, watch for fires, and write poetry. That this was Colorado instead of Oregon, and that unlike Jaffe Ryder, I was no poet, and wouldn't recognize a fire in the wilderness unless that wilderness included lots of palm trees. Didn't matter to me. I was heading west, I was on the road. And as you probably see where this story is going, at my first break, Thanksgiving weekend, I headed further west. I drove across the Rockies, straight for San Francisco, straight for City Lights bookstore. Once there, I was in awe. So many books in such unusual conversations with each other. Every section unlike any I'd ever seen before. Browsers were everywhere, broadsides on the walls, and all those City Lights titles. Ginsberg was even there, browsing the poetry room. That night, he and Gregory Corso would be having a reading together just down the street. I found my heaven, and I only wished I could stay forever. I did strike up a conversation with a bookseller that day. What we talked about, I don't really remember in great detail. I do remember, though, that he was very gracious, very patient, and that he regaled me with the history of the store and suggested I might like that new City Lights anthology that had just been published, the one with that great Bronner illustration on the cover, the one I still have. Although there's no way for me to be sure, and this is a story, I want to believe that that bookseller on that day in City Lights was Paul Yamazaki. It probably wasn't, but it makes perfect sense if it were, because that trip and that bookseller showed me the possibility of what my future could be, and that's the kind of effect that Paul has. So let's just say it was Paul. And let me just say thank you, Paul. And tonight, we all thank Paul. We gather to honor the remarkable work he has done for all of us for over 5 decades. Writers, readers, publishers, and booksellers. His commitment to the very deep waters of our literary life has made a difference, a profound difference. That Paul came to bookselling as a way to get an early release from a prison sentence rendered because of his activism is legendary, and it's so right. His well-developed sense of justice and inclusion brought a fresh vibrancy to City Lights when he took over as head buyer. And in a broader sense, his championing and passion for new and diverse voices and for small and independent presses set an early example for booksellers everywhere. He demonstrated that these voices and presses would find their readers when given a chance. He continues to be a catalyst for change, a transformational change that we witness today and each and every lay down Tuesday. I recently saw this post, I think it was by Ann Chelberg, and I thought of Paul. She writes, "This is what is great about bookselling. It's an embrace of the plural, whether within the store or broadly across the land." And broadly across the land, Paul's embrace of other booksellers is profound. His warmth, his humility, the way he listens, that smile of his, the joy he wears so well. He's a friend and a mentor to young and old, ones just starting out or those more established. And I've gathered a few of those voices for you, just a few. If I went further, there'd be hundreds. Melinda Powers of Bookshop Santa Cruz writes, "One of the qualities I love and admire most in Paul is his curiosity and the way it guides him with such kindness and humility. He's curious about the craft of bookselling, its myriad approaches. He's interested in his colleagues' perspectives, regardless of their experience, and he seeks out understanding through relationships, building bridges between writers, publishers, and booksellers, creating more space for everyone. Underneath it all is his love for the books, his keen understanding of the numbers, and his high standard of excellence, all of which he so generously shares, elevating us all." And this is from Jeff Deutsch of Seminary Co-op, who's a marvelous bookseller, but to me, he's more important as the publisher of a book that Paul is about to publish. It's by Paul, and it's called Reading the Room. And I've read an early copy of it, and I recommend it to this entire room. It's really remarkable. Jeff says, Paul Yamazaki has raised up generations of booksellers. He teaches by example, including the lesson that discernment and commitment need not compromise kindness and generosity. In Paul's peaceable kingdom, engagement, listening, and curiosity are the marks of greatness, and enthusiasm, the work. We are lucky to live in the time of Yamazaki. Well said, Jeff. Yes, we are. Miwa Messer, host of that wonderful podcast, Poured Over, writes, "Paul was the beacon I didn't know I needed when I met him 30 plus years ago. A cool cat, a dude who read everything, an Asian American bookseller. Paul held the door open for me, and I do the same because he taught me how. I stay because Paul stayed." Yes. And if you've ever come to any literary events like these, or the old BEA or the American Bookseller Association convention, you know that there's Paul and Rick, right? So this is from Rick Simonson of Elliott Bay. Another hand for Rick, too, I think. Of Paul, so much to say, but this, that his abiding interest in and attention to those who have come before our time, to those who are coming and will come after, and to the world this all happens in, bespeaks an old soul evident in him when he was young, and a young soul, evident now that he is an elder. Paul Yamazaki carries the immensity and humility of being human with purpose, passion, and a radiant spirit that is rare among us. He does indeed. Square Books, the wonderful Square Books in Oxford, Mississippi. Yes, Rick. From Richard Howarth, the founder of Square Books, says, Paul Yamazaki, one of the nicest people I have known, is the wise and gifted bookseller who, for a half-century, has given his head and heart and joy to one of America's iconic bookstores and its community. What a pleasure and great good fortune it is to have known him as a model, mentor, and drinking buddy. I mean, yeah, drinking buddy. Thanks, Richard, I almost forgot that. Because, you know, Paul, with a martini in hand, is an indication that all is right in the world, right? Anyone who's gone drinking with Paul knows that. And since I have the distinct pleasure of bestowing upon Paul Yamazaki the 2023 Literarian Award, I ask that all of us raise a glass in recognition of Paul's outstanding service to the American literary community. Paul Yamazaki, the Literarian Assistant.
I'm really stunned and humbled to be here. There's so many people in this room who've meant so much to me, who've made me look a lot smarter than I actually am. But it's to be the recipient of the Literarian Award is such a tremendous honor. It's not something that you seek out. It's not something that you aspire to, but it is what we've heard so much tonight, our passion and curiosity for the written word, for the book, for what the authors do for us. You know, it's right now, as we live in such troubled times and such turbulent times, it is the writers who really kind of bring forward how we're able to kind of determine a course through our lives. But it is what? The whole world is like kind of shaped by what the writers do, at least from my perspective as a bookseller. There is so much that we do not, or I do not get without reading the books, without having the conversations. And so, as I stand here as the current recipient of the Literarian Award, I have been preceded by 3 amazing booksellers, publishers who've directly affected me. But first, I would like to thank David Steinberger and the Board of Directors of the National Book Foundation, and Ruth Dickey, and the staff who've assembled us here, but not just for this evening, but for the work that they do constantly around the year, just like to bring writers and readers closer together. And that's what we all do together. We are the planks in the bridge towards building that closer connection. But it is the staff and board of the National Book Foundation that actually put those planks in place. And so we thank you very, very much for all of that. So we are kind of here not to hear me speak, but to celebrate the writers. And in this troubled time, it is the writers who really give us a guidepost to how we can move forward with compassion and humanity, and to be able to make kind of not preconceived notions of what we should be doing, but how the various kind of fonts that we can use to make our own determinations. So I've been really very privileged to have these amazing comments that Mitchell assembled. And so what's happened here, so Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Mitchell Kaplan, Orrin Teicher, all people who've directly affected my career as a bookseller. And so I'll spend a little time explaining exactly how they did that. So with Mitchell and Orrin, they were really able to create a foundation, an ecology, if you will, of the book world, of shape how we move forward, how we shape a sustainability. So for all the booksellers in the room, we know how difficult it is just in a day-to-day basis to create a sustainability not only for our stores, not only for our readers, but for our booksellers. And so it is Mitchell and Orrin who really created a template for us that we still follow, and it is through that conversations and the systems that they put forward that we can move forward like this. I wouldn't be standing here today without them, but most importantly, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who was the 2005 recipient of the Literarian Award, the first one that was given out by the National Book Foundation, had the wisdom to hire me while I was serving 2 concurrent sentences in San Francisco County Jail. And it is what Mitchell has done in Miami, what Lawrence did with me, is to show that if you don't shut doors, if you open the doors, there is so much that is possible. There is so much that we can do. The authors here today and who've been nominated on long list, short list, the ones that we as booksellers and librarians are able to kind of have the privilege of presenting to our readers, offer so many different bridges and pathways to think about how we resolve our various issues in the world today. So as we move forward, we have to kind of, each one of us, question how we do our books. It's for editors, for booksellers, there's always finite space. There's the economics of what we do, there's the space of what we do, and it is kind of the privilege of the bookseller that we're able to take for each one of our individual communities, one of our individual readers, how we're able to bring those readers forward. And I think one of the things that's so key, that what Mitchell has done in Miami is to show that if you open the doors, if you don't shut the doors, you'll be able, people will come in, they will walk with you. And I think one of the major things for me as a bookseller over the years is that trust the writer, trust the reader, and you really don't have to think about much else, because if you have that trust, if you have that conversation, people will walk with you. And it is kind of like after 5 decades as a bookseller, I can categorically state that trust is always there. And so for all of us together, we can kind of continue to build those reading audiences. And I think right now what's so important, that in the turmoil that we're facing right now, and we can see this with all the nominees and all the categories today, that each one of them gives an individual path for us to think about, to follow, to be able to kind of cogitate upon and move forward. So I'd like to thank, all my planned remarks, I've just kind of thrown out the window, kind of like what Mr. Burton, what Ms. Winfrey, what Mitchell have all done have kind of so beautifully encapsulated what our purpose is here today. And so I would like to thank all of you so much for bestowing this upon me, to have these conversations, and to move forward. And so we know that there's a lot of work that we all have to do about race and class, about how the conflicts in the world are going, but it is the authors today and moving forward that will help us set those guideposts to have these conversations. But thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, Rick Simonson. Thank you for all the booksellers in this room. Thank you for my colleagues at City Lights who've made this all possible for me. And most of all, my wife, Sarah Chin, who kind of has guided me through this whole process. And so thank you very much.
So we'll continue tonight's celebrations with the 2023 Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. Each year, the medal is given to a writer who has, over the course of their career, enriched our shared literary and cultural heritage. Previous recipients include Toni Morrison, Isabel Allende, and most recently, graphic novelist and comics artist Art Spiegelman. Yeah, yay, Art. Tonight's honoree has written in just about every genre, mentored hundreds, if not thousands, of emerging poets and writers, and served as the first Black poet laureate of these United States. Here to present the medal to Rita Dove is Mr. Jericho Brown. Jericho is the author of Please, which won an American Book Award, The New Testament, which won an Anisfield Wolf Book Award, and The Tradition, which was a National Book Award finalist and won the 2020 Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jericho Brown.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I hope my sister saw that LeVar Burton said my name. Thank you to the National Book Foundation for inviting me here. It's so nice to be in a room where everyone knows I'm a poet and nobody is stressed out about it. I know for a fact that in this room, no one has ever tried to ban a book by Jericho Brown. I don't know that in every room, but give yourselves a hand, give yourselves a hand. So I feel at home here, though I've traveled some distance. I have come all the way from Georgia, so you can hear and see me thank God for sending a particular poet to walk the earth with us, a light that shines brighter than my tuxedo. My challenge today is to tell you just one of the many ways my life has been changed by the lady you know as the Pulitzer Prize winner, the former Poet Laureate of the United States of America, the lady we refer to around my house as our best example, the lady I refer to in my mind as my sister. Tonight's Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters recipient, Rita Dove. Rita Dove won the Pulitzer Prize when I was in elementary school, and she was Poet Laureate of the United States by the time I was in high school. I'm going to pause there because I know you're writers, so you need time to do some math. I imagine I don't have to tell you what seeing Rita's face on posters in the schools and libraries where I was reared meant to me and my sense of possibility for living my life as a poet. Possibility is a particularly strong word for us, the people who populate this room, each of us showing up just to make sure, no, I'm not crazy, or at least I'm not the only crazy one. Possibility is what allows us the nerve to write and to believe that something can be made of our scribbles. Most of us are here in spite of, and sometimes because of, the fact that someone else thought the life we chose, the artist's life, was not a sustainable life. And here we are, proving the naysayers wrong. I'm here today because I am the descendant of a people who, against all odds, believed my existence possible. People who were not allowed to write, and then people who worked so hard with their hands for so many hours that to think about writing would only lead to further exhaustion. And yet these people dreamed of me. Before I was born, they thought someone like me could be a reading, writing, Black poet. They may not have been educated, but they knew I would need an education. Well, I ended up with so much education that I'm now a college professor with a PhD, and I'd like to teach you a poem I love by Rita Dove. Canary, from Michael S. Harper. Billie Holiday's burned voice had as many shadows as lights, a mournful candelabra against a sleek piano, the gardenia, her signature, under that ruined face. Now you're cooking, drummer to bass, magic spoon, magic needle. Take all day if you have to with your mirror and your bracelet of song. Fact is, the invention of women under siege has been to sharpen love in the service of myth. If you can't be free, be a mystery. I love that poem. Talk about lines that remind us of the power of possibility. This poem is a constellation of ancestry. Before we can get to its major subject, Billie Holiday, we have to understand the dedication to the great jazz poet Michael Harper. I mean, by the time you get through the first line, you are already steeped in blackness. It reminds me that my ancestry, my family, is an extended family. That like my hard-working forebears, Rita Dove had been writing with someone like me in mind long before ever meeting me. She knows how to do that because she knows Michael Harper dreamed of her existence. She knows Billie Holiday dreamed that if only there were a Michael Harper, maybe we could also end up with a Rita Dove someday. The poem, as so many Rita Dove poems do, lets me know that it is okay for me to expect that everyone ought to prepare for and know the tradition from which I was born, just as much as I am prepared for and know the tradition from which past recipients of this honor, like Ray Bradbury and Arthur Miller and John Ashbery, were born. If poetry is something we can use, then this poem fights for us. It lets us know that some of the feelings we once had of invisibility had a lot to do with who we thought needed to be looking at us. And it doubles down on that directive in one final line of a commandment. If you can't be free, be a mystery. It is my pleasure to present to you the novelist, the playwright, the songwriter, the recipient of the National Humanities Medal from President Bill Clinton and the National Medal of Arts from President Barack Obama, and the author of several beloved volumes of poetry. I give you our best example, my sister, Rita Dove.
Oh, Jericho. Wow. Thank you, man. I'm gonna try to step up onto that crystal stair you just laid out, you know? And that's Langston Hughes, for those of you who don't know. You know, to the National Book Foundation and the board of directors, its tireless staff, my deepest gratitude. I can't even explain what an honor this is, but I do have a confession for you. From the moment that Ruth Dickey told me I would be receiving this award, I began to fret about my acceptance speech. And not because of this particular audience, because you know the labor behind every triumph or failure. You are, in essence, my peeps. No, I fretted because I have always shied away from mulling over things like voice or intention or what impact my work might have on others, especially when I'm in the moment of writing, the process of writing, which is when I am most grounded in myself, in all the selves I have been and that have come before me, and all the selves that I might still become. So how then could I compose 3 to 5 minutes worth of clear, insightful sentences when a poet can easily spend 3 to 5 hours debating the effect of a comma versus a dash? I think that the translators here in our midst may understand best that what a poet manages to ink onto a page or put into a computer's memory, as it were, is just a silhouette, a shadow of that essential enigma that we call life. The poet is called upon to use words like stepping stones to carry herself and her readers across that unarticulated turbulence, the unworded depths within us. Granted, that's pretty frightening stuff, which may be why many people are wary of poetry, afraid they won't understand it the right way. In today's endangered intellectual climate, my cynical self might say that it's why the woefully growing list of censored and banned books in America's schools and libraries includes relatively little poetry, unless a commercial success pricks the ears of those reactionary book burners who, rather than risk being asked to explain what exactly it is that strikes them as dangerous in our stanzas, have left us to our corner of the sky, hoping that no one can hear us above their shouts. But we keep on strumming our harps, grateful for the village of publishers, editors, printers, distributors, marketers, booksellers, and readers who help keep those strings tuned. So tonight, I would like to give proper thanks to a few of those villagers who've helped me along the way. To Jerry Costanzo at Carnegie Mellon University Press, who 40-plus years ago, I can't believe that, believed in a fledgling poet enough to publish my first 3 books, and gave me his blessing when W.W. Norton came calling. And then to the inimitable Carol Hoke Smith, my editor at Norton for 20 years. Yeah. Until her death in 2009. And to my editor now, the marvelous Jill Bielowski, who seems to know just when I need a hug or a nudge. And of course, to my partner in crime and passion for nearly half a century, my husband, Fred Febon. But finally, I'd like to give a huge thank you to LeVar Burton for hosting this evening's festivities, but also for the hours of babysitting that Reading Rainbow Reading Rainbow provided when our daughter, Aviva, was growing up in the 80s. Now, day after day, you stepped into our living room to guide her on her book-driven adventures. She still remembers the volcano episode, by the way. And it was a time when to glimpse a portion of that luminous rainbow arch meant promise. I hope that this nation can find that open-hearted joy again. For the fear that has engendered so much hate, that has closed minds and stifled imagination, is precisely what literature, what all art, seeks to dismantle. So I thank you all for being here and sustaining me. Thank you.
Rita Dove! Rita Dove! I did not expect to come here and cry in front of people, but there you go. Thank you so much, Miss Dove. You know, she said something really interesting about art, and I believe that artistic expression is, in fact, love. Artistic expression is love in action. And so, all of you in this room who have any connection to art and artistic endeavor, and for me, the written word is at the highest rung of art itself. God bless. God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome the chairman of the board of the National Book Foundation, the very suave and debonair, David Steinberger.
Thank you, LeVar. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the National Book Foundation, I want to welcome you to the 74th National Book Awards. Now, as many of you know, it's not the board that actually picks the finalists or the winners of the National Book Awards. That's up to independent judges, different panel of judges every year. But we do get to vote on the Lifetime Achievement Awards. And it feels wonderful to have picked a great poet and a great bookseller. And tonight, I'm filled with gratitude, not only for this year's Lifetime honorees, but for all poets and all booksellers, and in fact, for all librarians and publishers and editors and writers, and most especially for all readers. Thank you, all of you, for making books central to your lives and for caring about our mission at the National Book Foundation. Now, those of you who know me or who've been here before know that I don't let an opportunity go by when I can recite the mission without doing that, right? Lisa Lucas, where's Lisa? Over here, right? So we've got a great mission to celebrate the best literature in the United States, expand its audience, and ensure books have a prominent place in our culture. That is why we're here tonight. Now, I don't have to tell you that it is a very challenging time in the world right now. The world seems very divided. There's a lot of sadness and anger and fear. And my heart goes out to everyone who's in pain. There's a lot of pain out there. And my wish for everyone who's with us tonight, people in the room and people who are joining us from their homes, is that books and our love of books can help us all find understanding, compassion, gratitude, and connection with one another. That our common love of books helps bring us all together, all of us. That's my sincere wish for tonight. And I feel good about that wish, the way things are going so far this evening. Now, my gratitude tonight also extends especially to our sponsors. I have to thank a few people. So thank you to Penguin Random House, Barnes & Noble, BPG, Central National Gottesman Foundation, Simon & Schuster, 20th Century Studios, Amazon, Apple, Audible, Books A Million, Book of the Month, Dior, Google, Hachette, HarperCollins, Hearst, Ingram, Macmillan, and Scholastic. Additional thanks to the Susan S. and Kenneth L. Wallach Foundation, the Stephen M. and Joyce E. Tadler Charitable Trust, Deborah Wiley and Karen and Marcus Dole. And to all those who donated, thank you. Thank you all. Okay. We now have a brief video. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for sharing our belief in the power of books.
I fell in love with reading when I started the Anne of Green Gables series at my school's library.
In 4th grade, my favorite teacher gave Bridge to Terabithia to the class. It was not like anything I had read before. It was controversial. It had some words that seemed naughty.
We have a tradition. Around the age of 13, we're given Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois, and we read it together as a family.
My little brother gifted me with 100 Years of Solitude. It's the momentum, it's the magic, the idea that you might go into a book and then come out a completely different person.
There are so many different ways to engage with the written word, whether it's poetry, whether it's fiction, whether it's nonfiction. Having an expansive definition of what it means to be a reader is the best way to have inclusivity in this world of literature that we all love.
When I think about books I've loved, including many of the books that the National Book Foundation has honored, I think about how the reader emerges from those books better able to love herself and to love other people, and therefore better able to fight for justice.
National Book Foundation does so many events all over America, and you see really the diversity of America and the different types of readers that are here in one room, almost like coming into the fold of a community of writers.
Building readers means creating opportunities for people to have extraordinary experiences with books and writers. We partner with nonprofits and libraries and universities to bring writers all around the country. We need champions for books, especially in this moment. And we also need lots of different opportunities for people to connect with books and find the books that resonate for them, for everyone to be able to find the book that may change their lives.
When young people have access to books, their world is bigger. They're able to have a bigger imagination, to know more outside of their own communities, to become better writers. They're able to be even more confident in who they are, especially when books reflect their stories, their identities, and celebrate that.
For them to choose the story that they want to read, you can't even measure the impact, how that would bring them and develop their reading journey of their own.
Reading teaches us empathy.
They can do anything. They can go anywhere. When you give somebody a book, they can experience something unlike anything they might have otherwise experienced. That's one of the reasons I love translated literature, is you're giving somebody an exploration into a different country, a different world, different beliefs, and understanding.
That National Book Awards is just sort of changing the boundaries of how we engage with text and making it really accessible to young people.
The National Book Awards are incredibly special, in part because it's an opportunity for authors to get recognition for all the work that they do behind closed doors, sometimes in the dead of night, to try to tell a story.
The National Book Award makes books visible to the public, uplifts them on this international scale. It's an act of generosity. It keeps the art of reading and writing alive.
We're in a moment culturally where the idea of creativity is under attack. If we're not careful, we're going to end up with a culture that doesn't want to dream. The National Book Foundation is really necessary in terms of countering that. Simply saying a culture that can't have this starving itself. It's not food and it's not water, but it's just as important, it's just as necessary. The National Book Foundation helps to guarantee that there will be books, there will be readers for those books, there will be writers for those books. That's why it's important to celebrate.
Please welcome to the stage Ruth Dickey, Executive Director of the National Book Foundation.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. I'm so grateful to have a moment amidst tonight's luminous celebrations of books and writers to also talk about the work that we do year-round supporting readers. As you just saw in that great video, through a slate of education and public programs, the National Book Foundation has reached readers in nearly all 50 states. Just this past year, we visited communities across the country, from Miami, Florida to Tucson, Arizona, and from the Mississippi Delta to Huntsville, Texas. In May, National Book Award honorees Tess Gunty and Tommy Orange joined us in Montana for events at Salish Kootenai College, a community college on the Flathead Reservation, and with Elk River Arts and Lectures in Livingston, Montana. Yeah, it was amazing. Attendees thanked us, and some of them mentioned they had driven 6 hours to be with us at the event. Those words have stuck with me ever since, a reminder that in every corner of the country, there is a hunger for reading, a hunger for meeting writers and for conversations, and a hunger for connecting with books that capture the diversity and complexity of the human experience. At the National Book Foundation, we want books to be a vibrant and accessible part of every community. And to do that, we need your help. We're just $57,000 from reaching tonight's fundraising goal, and we hope that you will help us to reach it. For those of you in the room with us, there are QR codes at your table and on your menus, so you can get out your phone right now and do that in the room with us. Or if you prefer to make a pledge or donate with a cash or check, we'll have volunteers stationed to collect donations at the end of the night. For our viewers at home, please follow the link in the chat or visit nationalbook.org/give. A donation of any amount will help us bring more authors to more communities, to get more books into the hands of more young people, and to help ensure that books remain a thriving part of our culture. So as you make your donations, I hope you are all getting out your phones and making those donations right now. I'd love to thank a few more really important people. Thank you to the National Book Foundation Board of Directors for your tremendous leadership, your guidance, and your unwavering commitment to this work. Thank you to our book council, our host committee, and our after-party committee for lending us your time, your expertise, and your cheer. Thank you to our collaborators at Really Useful Media who are producing tonight's broadcast for readers across the country. Thank you to our incredible design team at CHIPS with additional design support from Jar Fong, who always makes sure we look our very best. Immense thanks to tonight's host, LeVar Burton, for being a lifelong hero for books and an ally in our work. And thanks to our very special guest, Oprah Winfrey, for being an incomparable champion of books and writers. Last, but certainly not least, we need a whole room tremendous thank you for the volunteers, interns, and small but mighty staff of the National Book Foundation. Right? huge thank you to Meredith Andrews, Natalie Green, Erica Hattori, Emily Lovett, Juliana Lee Marino, Megan Reynolds, Ale Romero, Jordan Smith, Meg Tansey, and John Winkler. And an extra special thank you to our amazing awards and honors manager, Madeline Shelton, for coordinating so many details, large and small, to make tonight possible. And speaking of tonight, it's almost time to learn which books will be the winners of this year's National Book Awards. Your support of the National Book Foundation helps share the energy and excitement that we are all feeling in this room right now with readers all across the country. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. Thank you for believing in our work, and thank you for being part of the best team that there is, Team Book. Thank you. Enjoy the night.
Okay, I would love to remind everyone how critical it is for all of us to support the year-round work of the National Book Foundation to reach readers everywhere. As Ruth said, we have just $57,000 left to meet our goals. So before you leave tonight, or close your computer if you are at home, please join us in supporting readers and books all year long. You know, one of the most exciting and special parts of the National Book Awards are that no one knows who the winners are in advance. Not the board of directors or the staff or even me. I asked, they wouldn't tell me. Earlier today, the 5 judges in all 5 categories made their final decisions, and we all are sharing in the excitement to hear the news made public live on this stage tonight. The winners will be announced by the chair of each category, presented in reverse alphabetical order. First, young people's literature, then translated literature, poetry, nonfiction, and finally, fiction. We have a few more surprises up our sleeve this evening, 5 to be exact. Each category and panel chair will be introduced by the voice of a fellow book lover helping us to celebrate from afar. First, we have award-winning actress, singer, and author to introduce the finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Young People's Literature, and panel chair Dr. Claudette S. McClellan introducing Julie Andrews.
In the hands of a young person, books are nothing short of transformative. This year's finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Young People's Literature include novels, a graphic memoir, and a picture book. Readers follow young protagonists full of both love and embarrassment for their families, from rural Vermont to Disney World. These stories remind us that words matter tremendously and that histories should be re-examined in the United States and abroad to help young readers better understand the world and their places within it. The panel chair for this year's National Book Award for Young People's Literature is Claudette S. McClellan, the Executive Director of the Center for the Study of Multicultural Children's Literature.
Good evening. Being a member of the 2003 National Book Award for Young People's Literature panel has been a once-in-a-lifetime honor for each of us. We, the Fantastic Five, completed personal, professional, and geographic journeys via Zoom meetings to get to this evening in New York City. We were a team, a dream team, coming from different backgrounds and cultures. Our discussions were open, thought-provoking, comprehensive, and deep. We were respectful and appreciative of each other's points of view. I am deeply grateful to my fellow judges, Sarah Park-Dolan, Kyle Lukoff, Justin A. Reynolds, Sabah Tahir. It was a privilege to work together to select these fabulous finalists. The finalists for the National Book Award for Young People's Literature are Kenneth M. Cotto, Gather. Candlewick Press. Huda Fahmy. Huda F. Cares. Dial Books for Young Readers and Penguin Random House. Vashti Harrison, Big. Little Brown Books for Young Readers, Hatchet Book Group. Catherine Marsh, The Lost Year, A Survival Story of the Ukrainian Famine. Roaring Brook Press, Macmillan Publishers. And Dan Santak, A First Time for Everything. First, Second, Macmillan Publishers. And this year's National Book Award for Young People's Literature goes to Dan Santak, A First Time for Everything.
You know, you tell yourself that you're not going to write a speech because you don't think you have a chance. And I think maybe my friend Robin Benway, who won the National Book Award back in 2018, she took me out to a celebratory lunch for being on the short list, and she said, well, technically, you have a 20% chance. So you should write something, because there's a lot of smart people in that room. Thank you so much for this lovely award. I'd like to congratulate my 4 fellow finalists who I've had the lovely honor of sharing this amazing experience with, as well as with the amazing list of long list authors who were also named. I'd like to thank everyone at the National Book Award Committee, and especially this year's judges, for selecting such a diverse range of books from young adult to middle grade and picture books and graphic novels, which demonstrate that a wide variety of stories can be worthy of such high praise. I'd like to thank my editor, Connie Hsu, who has been my arbiter of literary taste for almost 10 years. While many authors sometimes have proofreaders and friends who read their work, Connie has been my sole confidant, who studies my rough idea of a story like a large ball of clay and helps me mold it into a refined work of art that I can proudly share for all the world to see. 1 Caldecott Medal and 1 National Book Award. Not bad, Connie. I'd like to thank my agent, Jody Reamer, for her ability to skillfully help manage my career for almost 15 years. She's been a steadfast supporter of my ideas and ambitions of this once young, insecure artist, and helped me navigate the course towards a wonderful career that I have today.
More importantly, I value your friendship and the close bond we have as friends. I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Leah, who endures the sometimes chaotic months and years of a writer who can become so passionate in his ambitions that he would consume his own soul to craft a work of art. It is not easy being the soulmate of a man who is willing to die for his work. You're often asked to pull double duty as a parent for days and sometimes weeks while I'm on book tours and school visits, while you skillfully navigate your own ambitions as a scientist in the challenging field of biology. You allow me the freedom to chase my ambitions, dreams, but remind me that the world is not worth living if you don't occasionally pause for a moment to relax. I'd like to thank everyone at Macmillan Publishing, most notably Kirk Benshaw for his meticulous eye as an art director, Morgan Rath, Molly Ellis, Jen Besser, John Yaegd, and many others, far too many to name, who helped get a first time for everything out into the world. Last but not least, I'd like to thank my mother, who I think is watching right now, who saw her young, insecure child endure the struggles of growing up through the tumultuous years of adolescence and gently pushed them out the door to show his young, innocent mind that despite the awkward and awful experiences we can sometimes experience in life, that the world is immense, and that within that vast world, there is also great kindness and love. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Dan. And to Dan's mom watching on the live stream, we are all big fans of your work. Next up, we have actor and author of Green Lights and Just Because. To introduce the finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Translated Literature and the panel chair, Jeremy Tiang, please listen for the voice of Matthew McConaughey.
Reading literature in translation reveals the connective power of storytelling on an international scale. The finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Translated Literature blur fantasy and reality within their pages, considering the brutalities of capitalism, colonialism, and homophobia. Characters, old and young, chase the possibility of freedom and expand the limits of our imaginations. These works were translated into English from Dutch, French, Korean, Portuguese, and Spanish. The panel chair for this year's National Book Award for Translated Literature is Jeremy Tiang, novelist, playwright, and translator of over 20 books from Chinese.
Right. Thank you to the voice of Matthew McConaughey. At a time of great turbulence and mistrust, translated literature is more vital than it has ever been, with its ability to help us navigate an increasingly fractured world. Since its inception in its current form 5 years ago, this category has recognized books that delve into some of the most pressing issues of the day, such as Palestinian liberation and displaced people, to climate change, while also being scintillating texts in their own right. These books are an essential part of the global conversation, brought to Anglophone readers through the dedication and brilliance of translators and publishers. This year's finalists are no exception, ranging from a tender coming-of-age and coming-out queer novel from Brazil to a reckoning with colonial legacy in Senegal, from an elliptical portrait of a troubled childhood in Colombia to a spiky, surreal collection of short stories from South Korea and a fractured Surinamese narrative of queer actualization. It was near impossible to choose between these treasures, and I have to thank my fellow judges Jeffrey Brock, Arthur Malcolm Dixon, Christina Rodriguez, and Tracy Deneen Sharpley-Whiting for the months of reading and intense discussion, and for the grace and thoughtfulness with which they navigated this most difficult of decisions. We are all grateful to the National Book Foundation, particularly to Ruth Dickey and Madeline Shelton, for guiding us through this process. The 5 finalists for the National Book Award for Translated Literature are Bora Chung, Cursed Bunny, translated from the Korean by Anton He, Algonquin Books, Hachette Book Group. David Job, Beyond the Door of No Return, translated from the French by Sam Taylor, FSG Macmillan Publishers. Stênio Gardel, The Words That Remain, translated from the Portuguese by Bruna Dantas Lobato, New Vessel Press. Pilar Quintana, Abyss, translated from the Spanish by Lisa Dillman, World Editions. Astrid Romer, On a Woman's Madness, translated from the Dutch by Lucy Scott, Two Lines Press. This year's National Book Award for Translated Literature goes to Stênio Gardel and Bruna Dantas Lobato for The Words That Remain, New Vessel Press.
What is happening right now? Thanks to the National Book Foundation and the judges. Okay. I dedicate this award to my mom, Irene. She's not amongst us anymore, but she always believed in me, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. She was the best mom, and I miss her so much. I'd like to thank my brother, Jardel, all my family and friends, Socorro Scioli, Vanessa Ferrari, Julia Bucius, also Fernando Rinaldi, Stephanie Rock, and everyone at Companhia das Letras, my Brazilian publishing house. And also Lucia Heath, Julia Verman, and everyone at Heath Agency. Finally, two special thanks to Bruna for capturing the heart and the breath of the book and writing them down in your own beautiful words. And to Michael Wise, publisher of New Vessel Press, for all your dedication and hard work, and for giving my novel such a wonderful home. Growing up as a gay boy in the hinterlands of northeast of Brazil, it was impossible for me to think, to dream of such an honor. But being here tonight as a gay man, receiving this award for a novel about another gay man's journey to self-acceptance, I wanted to say to everyone who ever felt wrong about themselves that your heart and your desire are true, and you are just as deserving as anybody else of having a fulfilling life and accomplishing possible dreams. Thank you. Have a great night.
Oh my God. Hi. Thank you all so much to my fellow finalists for their brilliant work, to the judges for reading hundreds of books, to Stanu for trusting me with his beautiful writing, and to our editors at New Vessel Press, Michael Wise and Jennifer Shu, for putting my name on the cover of that book where it belongs. Thank you. Hashtag name the translator. We are not mysterious fairies working in the dark. It's so rare that I get to see the Brazil I know in books, and it's even rarer for a book like this to receive this kind of honor, and I'm so grateful. Thank you always for reading translations, for recognizing the work of translators, for recognizing our art from our corner of Latin America. Here's to reading the world with curiosity and empathy. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Stinio and Bruna. Next, we have the author of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. He's a chef and a co-host of Home Cooking. To introduce the finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Poetry and the panel chair, Hyde E. Erdrich. Please listen to the voice of Samin Nosrat.
Poetry reveals the limitless possibilities and power of language. The finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Poetry explore communication and touch, the ancestral healing medicine of words, and the building of community and collectives. These works traverse language and borders to connect and define family, and confront the pervasiveness of American racism to show not just where we are from, but where we're going. The panel chair for this year's National Book Award for Poetry is Hyde E. Erdrich, the author of 7 poetry collections, including Little Big Bully, a National Poetry Series winner.
I'm gratified to thank my colleagues on the poetry panel for their hard work and the camaraderie and the pleasure of their company in a quite difficult task. We thank the National Book Foundation for this honor. The 2023 poetry panel members are Rick Barreau, Jonathan Farmer, Reina J. Leon, Solmaz Sharif. The poetry panel acknowledges the extraordinary privilege of celebrating poetry in a face of tremendously difficult moment in our history. While we have the joy of honoring powerful poems of beauty, language, love, family, history, trauma, genocide, colonial dispossession, and survivance. While we reward our accomplishment in our art form tonight, human suffering in Gaza is at the forefront of our thoughts. Celebration and grief seem opposed, but in my life and in my recent interactions with those in the US personally suffering this war, poetry is what we reach for in our grief. As Mahmoud Darwish wrote, a poem in a difficult time is beautiful flowers in a cemetery. These past 6 months of panel conversation around hundreds of poetry collections has been deep work. We are all enlarged by what we've read. We found voices that continue to sound in our minds. Several of these books made it into our long list and then short list, but hundreds more did not. We salute every poet whose books were up for consideration, and we thank you for your words. The finalists for the National Book Award for Poetry are John Lee Clark, How to Communicate, W.W. Norton and Company. Craig Santos Perez from Unincorporated Territory, Amat. Omnidon Publishing. Brandon Somm, Tripias, Georgia Review of Books, University of Georgia Press. Eve Shockley, Suddenly We, Wesleyan University Press. And Monica Yoon, From, Grey Wolf Press. This year's National Book Award for Poetry goes to, from Unincorporated Territory, Amat, Craig Santos Perez.
Hafaday, greetings. Sainama Asi to the National Book Foundation. Sainama Asi, thank you to Hyde and all the judges. And Sainama Asi to all the poetry finalists, all of whom I consider friends and whose work I admire. I want to thank my partner, Olivia. I haven't written for about a year, and she's been so supportive of me and is getting me to write again. So thank you. I want to thank my family, my brother and sister, my dad, and especially my mom who's traveled here tonight. My mom. I'm from a very small island of Guam, and there's only one bookstore, and when I was a kid, my mom would take me there every week to always buy me a book, and she instilled the love of reading and writing from a very young age, so thank you, Mom, I love you so much. As I mentioned, I come from Guam, which is a U.S. territory, one of the last remaining colonies in the world. And when I was growing up in kind of a colonial American school system, we were never taught my own people's literature, we were always taught American literature. And so when I started writing, my mission was to hopefully inspire the next generation of Pacific Islander authors And so I wanted to end my remarks to read a poem, the last poem from this book. But before I do that, I also want to thank my publishers, Omnidon, to Laura for helping me typeset and design this book, to Rusty. I'm not sure if you folks are watching back home, but Rusty's been my publisher and teacher for the last 20 years. I'm so grateful to you, Rusty. I love you so much. And thank you also to Ken Keegan, another publisher of Omnidon who is no longer with us. So with all those names, I want to share this poem. It's called The Pacific Written Tradition. I returned home to Guam for the first time after 15 years away and visit an English class at one of Guam's public high schools. As I read aloud from my new book, I notice a student crying. "What's wrong?" I ask. She says, "I've never seen our culture in a book before. I just thought we weren't worthy of literature." How many young islanders have dived into the depths of a book only to find bleached coral and emptiness? We were taught that missionaries were the first readers in the Pacific because they could decipher the strange signs of the Bible. We were taught that missionaries were the first authors because they possessed the authority of written words. Today, studies show that Islander students read and write below grade level. It's natural, experts claim. Your ancestors were an illiterate oral people. Don't believe their claims. Our ancestors deciphered signs in nature, interpreted star formations and sun positions, cloud and wind patterns, wave currents, and ocean efflorescence. That's why Master Navigator Papa Mao once said, quote, "If you can read the ocean, you will never be lost," end quote. Now let me tell you about Pacific written traditions, how our ancestors tattooed their skin with defiant scripts of intricately inked genealogies, how they carved epics into hard wood with sharpened points, their hands and the pressure and responsibility of memory, how they stenciled petroglyphic lyrics on cave walls with clay, fire, and smoke. So the next time someone tells you our people were illiterate, teach them about our visual literacies, our ability to read the intertextual sacredness of all things. And always remember, if we can write the ocean, we will never be silenced. Thank you.
Congratulations, Craig. Next up, we have comedian, writer, and the former host of The Daily Show to introduce the finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Nonfiction and panel chair, Ada Ferrer. Here is the voice of Mr. Trevor Noah.
To understand the present, we must better understand our past. The finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Nonfiction recontextualize U.S. history through an indigenous lens, confront the trauma of gendered violence, and weave together 248 notes on Black life. Memoir and research live side by side, as do climate science and oral histories. Together, these works of nonfiction weave together a multiplicity of voices to illustrate both our history and a path forward. The panel chair for this year's National Book Award for Nonfiction is Ada Ferrer, author of Cuba, An American History, winner of the 2022 Pulitzer Prize in History.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. And thank you to Ruth and Madeline and everyone at the National Book Award Foundation for all the work you do and for putting on tonight's event. So, a few weeks ago, I was in northern Florida doing a book event at a retirement community with a lot of well-read people in the audience. And one of them, I was expecting questions about the book, but one of them asked me, what is the most interesting, rewarding thing you have done this year? And without hesitating, I replied, well, serving as on the jury for the National Book Award in Nonfiction. It has been an awe-inspiring experience. It didn't matter that it was so much work, that getting from 638 very uniquely distinctive books to one winner tonight seemed impossible at many points. It didn't even matter that some of us on the jury were dreaming about books night after night. It was awe-inspiring for two reasons. One was the judges I got to serve with, and the other reason is the books themselves. So I had the privilege and the pleasure to work closely with four brilliant, thoughtful, and generous colleagues: Hanif Abudar-Rakib, who could not be here tonight but is here with us in spirit, James Fugate, Sarah Scholman, and Sonia Shaw. Starting in May, we read and read, we Zoomed and talked, always returning to the criteria that we established at the outset of what we were looking for in these books. And we decided that we wanted works that matter in any of the multiple ways that books can matter. We were looking for writing that is beautiful, again, in any of the many ways that writing can be beautiful. Books that were interesting in form or original in their approach to a topic, and ultimately work that surprises when you read it. We read so many books that impressed us and moved us. Fascinating, exquisite books that we are so glad are out in the world. I speak on behalf of the panel when I congratulate everyone who had a book nominated this year. But as you all know, we had to get from 638 to 10, then to 5, and tonight to 1. The finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Nonfiction are Ned Blackhawk, The Rediscovery of America, Native Peoples and the Unmaking of U.S. History by Yale University Press, Cristina Rivera Garza, Liliana's Invincible Summer, A Sister's Search for Justice by Hogarth Penguin Random House, Christina Sharp, Ordinary Notes, Farrar, Straus, and Giroux Macmillan Publishers, Raja Shehadi, We Could Have Been Friends, My Father and I, a Palestinian memoir by Other Press, and finally, John Valiant, Fireweather, A True Story from a Hotter World, Knopf Penguin Random House. And this year's National Book Award for Nonfiction goes to Ned Blackhawk, The Rediscovery of America.
It may take me a minute or two to collect myself. What an extraordinary evening and 2 days the past experience has been. I really am extraordinarily humbled by this recognition. And I'm also deeply appreciative of the spirit of generosity, the kind of collaborative support, and the really intense kind of solidarity that all of the finalists have displayed over the past 2 days. It's a real honor to be part of this National Book Award family, and I'll cherish this experience for a very, very long time. So thank you so very much for this incredible recognition. I'm thrilled beyond words to accept the National Book Award. This book, which I have a copy of someplace, was a very long time in the making. And I really can't even begin to identify its precise origins. It's conceivable they started at a time when I may not have even known that I would someday become a historian. When I, too, went to public libraries and encountered the beauty of the vast world of books. Or perhaps it was from my dear mother, who is watching, who was also an English teacher. I'm indebted to so many who helped in this process and in the book's conceptualization, its formulation, and its production. Most notably, my brilliant partner, Maggie Blackhawk. Maggie, your sustained nurture and support have been so transformative. Your matchless command over federal Indian law and constitutional inquiry have also been quite helpful, making the second half of this book in particular possible. We've survived several moves, a global pandemic, and a three-year-old tornado named Evan Aaron Blackhawk. Among many challenges, words cannot convey how grateful I remain for all that you do. The team at Yale University Press has been wonderful. From the moment we envisioned a series on American Indians and modernity to the development of this most recent volume, Christopher Rogers, Adina Burke, Brenda King, and John Donatich have been supportive and offered the highest forms of professionalism at every stage. Thank you. Many close friends, family, and colleagues have also helped. What is the saying? They know who they are. My dear friends, Aaron and Marianne Birdbear from Madison, Wisconsin, merit particular recognition. They have been with us, and we have been with them. A small team of former students helped in essential ways, securing permissions for images, helping with the maps that I'm very proud of in this book. The end maps of the front and the front maps and the end maps both kind of convey the sense and argumentation of the book as a whole. They show the pre-contact or pre-removal locations of the native nations of the United States at the time of European arrival. The end map shows the contemporary state and federally recognized tribes of native nations across the contiguous United States. You can find them all in 2 maps. So a small team of former students helped in that process, offering much needed assistance along the way. In the space of profound gratitude, I'd like to close with a bit of an invitation that may not be super evident from the book's formal introduction or its while often simultaneously unfamiliar and discomforting, is also a shared experience that touches us all. The currents of the past run deep and inform the topography of the present, a theme that we've seen throughout the work of so many finalists this year. Native America is also a form of our national inheritance. We cannot nor should not continue its systematic erasure. Moreover, it is a rich and vibrant field that provides uncommon and uncommonly beautiful insights. By example, it is difficult to convey how beleaguered, impoverished, and generally marginalized Native nations have often been in contemporary America. A, quote, ignorant and dependent race, as the Supreme Court once maintained. Related, it is similarly difficult to convey how astute, capable, and at times successful Native nations and their citizens have been in achieving secured protections of their lands, resources, and sovereign authority. This is a field and subject, in short, that can be both inviting and rewarding, despite the potential unfamiliarity and discomfort that may accompany one through their initial steps. To know and walk this land, to feel and understand its past, and to do so as best that we can, guided by the voices of Indigenous peoples, past and present, these must become essential attributes of American historical inquiry, guiding heuristics, guiding philosophies, open to all. Thank you so very much again.
Oh, congratulations, Ned. Well, here we are. Finally, we have the singer, songwriter, and the founder of Service 95 to introduce the finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction, and the panel chair, Matt Johnson. Here is the voice of Dua Lipa.
Fiction demands rigorous curiosity for character, for place, for new and different perspectives. The finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction illuminate the interior lives of their characters, from prisoners fighting to the death on reality television, to Black Muslims defining and redefining their faith in contemporary America, to multiple generations of a mixed-race fishing community. Whether from the shores of remote islands or the tundras of Scandinavia, these stories interrogate love and hate, dedication and defiance, and the reclamation and reinvention of our shared histories. The panel chair for this year's National Book Award for Fiction is Matt Johnson, the Philip H. Knight Chair of Humanities at the University of Oregon and author of Invisible Things.
I am always too tall for these damn things. Okay. Forgive me. I have a confession to make. I've been published for 23 years now, and in that time I've made many lifelong friends in the literary community. Some of them are here. And I've seen colleagues grow on the page and flourish until the whole world knows how dope they are, just like we always did. I've mentored many promising students who've gone on to become prominent writers. For much of my adult life, the literary world has been my natural ecosystem, and yet I haven't read most of their books. People I hold dearly, you know, I've read some of them, but not nearly all, and I read a lot, but it's a lot of books. And thus, it is nearly impossible to be both an active writer and also get to read all the books you would love to be able to. There's just not enough hours in a given year. Even in those periods where I am able to read far more than I usually do, I can only manage to peruse a small cross-section of all that's available in American prose fiction for any given year. One of the greatest benefits of participating in the judging of the National Book Award is that it literally forces you to read way beyond your normal scope. Every book you've been hearing buzz about all year, and other books no one is talking about, and yet they should be. Together, they form a sort of state of the union of American fiction, and I am very happy to report that the state of literature is strong. Now, here's another confession. I don't like award shows. I have an excellent reason for this, like many writers. It's called player hating. I'm not gonna lie. Oftentimes, these events are for art forms that already get a tremendous amount of attention. Glamorous faces we see on TV all year just peering in one room for the night. But, and I say this with absolute bias, literature is different. Aside from a minute handful of exceptions, new books do not benefit from multi-million-dollar ad campaigns. Rather, publishing relies on word of mouth, on literary reputation, on free shit. Paradoxically, while technical advances have made getting published and distributed easier, the new sea of literary voices has simultaneously made it incredibly difficult for individual books to fulfill their most basic purpose, to be read. Which is why events like this are so important. Each book honored as a finalist tonight represents the very best of American literature, as chosen by these specific judges at this specific moment. And I make a point of offering that qualification because it's important to note that literature is not track and field. Literature is not a horse race. There is no numerically conclusive way to gauge literary greatness. Readers and writers have individual influences, desires, and tastes, and those tastes shift over time. Books heralded today are often ignored tomorrow, and vice versa. The wonderful, and I mean truly wonderful, books selected as our finalists tonight are great. But they are not isolated incidents. They are representative of a thriving art form that has never been more diverse in every sense of that word. On behalf of the brilliant judges that I got to hang out with for the last couple months, Helen Maria Veramontes, Steph Cha, Calvin Crosby, Silas House, and myself, thank you, National Book Foundation. Thank you for standing up for books and free speech for the last couple months. Because you were challenged and you met the challenge. And thank you for the read. It was as much an honor to participate in judging this award as it is to bestow it. The finalists for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction are Nana Kwame Jebrenya, Chain Gang All-Stars, Pantheon Books, Penguin Random House, Aliyah Bilal, Temple Folk, Simon Schuster, Paul Harding, This Other Eden, W.W. Norton and Company, Hanya Pilvaman, The End of Drum Time, Henry Holt and Company, Macmillan Publishers, Justin Torres, Blackouts, Ferrer, Strauss and Moreau, Macmillan Publishers, and this year's National Book Award for Fiction goes to Blackouts by Justin Torres.
Wow. I'm shocked. I'm gonna keep this really short because the writers, we've collectively decided to make a statement. And so I think the best thing, we've been sitting for a long time, and so I think the best thing is for the writers who want to participate in the statement to kind of make their way up, and then I will make my personal remarks while people are coming up. So come. So first, I need to thank my man, David Russell, for putting up with my excessive lamentations about this book and about my own abilities. He's a literary critic, he's a scholar, he's a champion of literature, he's the smartest person I've ever spoken with. It has paid dividends to be with him. I love you. I want to thank my friends, especially Emma Borges Scott and Angela Flournoy, who's here tonight with me, for putting up with my excessive lamentations about this book. I want to thank my mother, who's watching from a distance. Ma, I love you. I want to thank my queer family, especially Jamie Sharon Cohen and Ariana Martinez and Valencia Martinez, my beloved. I want to thank my agent, Jenna. I want to thank everyone at FSG, but especially Jenna Johnson, who has, we've been working together for 15 years. She edited my first book. She's promised to edit my next book. You've taught me so much about grace and integrity, both on and off the page, and I feel lucky to keep growing and working with you. And now, transition, and we're gonna offer a statement.
On behalf of the finalists, we oppose the ongoing bombardment of Gaza and call for a humanitarian ceasefire to address the urgent humanitarian needs of Palestinian civilians, particularly children. We oppose anti-Semitism and anti-Palestinian sentiment and Islamophobia equally, accepting the human dignity of all parties, knowing that further bloodshed does nothing to secure lasting peace in the region. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 74th National Book Awards ceremony, but I want to say before we disperse, I am so grateful to have lived long enough to see this snapshot of literature in America today. Congratulations to all of the finalists, the winners, and the judges. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. For those of you at home, thank you for being with us. And please, all of you, keep reading. I know I've got my work cut out for me after tonight. God bless. Look after yourselves going home. I'll see you next time, but you don't have to take my word for it.